When you're in the presence of a teacher, you take on the role of student. When you're in the presence of a doctor, you take on the role of patient. Researchers are using that technology to better understand what is going on in the brains of hypnotized subjects. Because if hypnosis was a state of hypersuggestibility, as had often been proposed...
You're amused?
No, merely skeptical. How would you go about it?
I've used hypnotism more than once in healing. Not for profit. I'm not a professional. But I do think I could help you. If you'd care to...
I can't think of a pleasanter experience.
Now you will do exactly as I tell you.
In part 3, we'll look at how hypnosis research has progressed to try to gain an understanding of what hypnosis is and how it works. Since the days of mesmerism, there's always been a desire and attempt to develop a theory which can explain what hypnosis is and how it works. James Braid progressed in his own research from seeing hypnosis as a state of nervous sleep to a process of focused attention. Libolt considered it a special state of sleep. Bernheim thought of hypnosis as a process of active engagement with suggestions, and Charcot believed that hypnosis was made up of a series of nervous states. Moving into the 20th century, researchers started to explore this question of what hypnosis is and how it works through greatly improved scientific experiments. There are two parts to hypnosis, the doing and the experiencing. People say, I'm doing hypnosis, I'm hypnotizing you, and they say, I'm in hypnosis, I'm hypnotized. Doing hypnosis is just the term given to communication skills used to communicate ideas that focus and absorb non-conscious attention. The classic hypnotic therapeutic trance, a trance in this context, is a state of focused absorption that manifests with cognitive, behavioural and biological traits. It isn't like a drug-induced altered state, but rather like the difference between being anxious or being relaxed. Both of these will have various differences, including different brainwave patterns. They'll have different cognitive thinking styles, different behaviours associated with them, different beliefs being held while in one state or the other, and a different composition of hormones flowing through the body. Is where a person has entered a state of heightened neuroplasticity, where they're able to learn new information, updating old patterns, or have greater control over themselves, like over unconscious processes. Hypnotic techniques can be used to induce relaxation, anger, confusion, fear, pain, love, sadness, desire, or any other trance state. The question in hypnosis research through much of the latter half of the 1900s was on the idea of whether hypnosis was a special trance state that is a measurable state of mind you could call a hypnotic state, or whether it is in fact just people complying either knowingly or unknowingly and acting out the role of the hypnotic subject and trying to understand what aspects of hypnosis are essential and which are products of suggestion. Most modern researchers accept a socio-cognitive model of hypnosis rather than a special state theory, but researchers weren't always in such close agreement. Milton Erickson was curious about whether a subject is acting as if they were hypnotized, or if they actually were hypnotized, concluding, "My feeling that in hypnotic research one should resort to indirect method as much as possible to keep the subject from ever cooperating with you intentionally and complacently to give you the desired results." This didn't mean subjects didn't pick up on the implicit communication and respond to this by role-taking. It just meant that consciously, if they were role-taking, they didn't realise it. During Clark Hull's experiments in the 1920s and 30s, he explored the question of the impact of hypnotic induction on suggestibility and found that the increase in suggestibility was negligible. But there was up to a 2 times increase in responsiveness. This has continued to be found in research. The question became, if this thing called hypnosis that you do to someone doesn't reliably increase suggestibility, then it can't be an induced state, because if hypnosis was a state of hypersuggestibility, as had often been proposed, and some people respond to suggestions within hypnosis while others didn't, then maybe it isn't a state, but instead role-taking. Perhaps people are taking on the role of hypnotized subject as best they know how, and then carrying out what they feel is expected of them within this role. Erickson noted, based on about 300 subjects and thousands of hypnotic inductions on those subjects, that, far from making them hypersuggestible, it was found necessary to deal very gingerly with them to keep from losing their cooperation. Research on post-hypnotic amnesia by Theodore Barber found that people were more likely to have amnesia when they acted as if they had amnesia. This didn't matter whether they were hypnotized or not. The results were the same, which gives weight to the role-taking theories of hypnosis. When permissive suggestions to try your best to forget were given, hypnotized subjects responded significantly less than non-hypnotized subjects, with 6% of hypnotized subjects forgetting at least 3 of 6 words, and 50% of non-hypnotized subjects. Saying try implies that there will be difficulty, so the hypnotized subjects, who may well be more responsive to nuanced communication, likely responded to the suggestion that they'll have difficulty forgetting. When direct suggestions to forget were given, about a quarter of the hypnotized and non-hypnotized subjects forgot at least 3 of 6 words. And when the simulators who acted as if they had amnesia, almost all of the hypnotized and non-hypnotized subjects forgot at least 3 of 6 words. During research, hypnotized subjects respond differently to simulators, those acting as if they're hypnotized. If people are role-taking, it wasn't thought that this was something they were consciously deciding to do, but instead a role they were taking on implicitly from the context. The overt instructions of the hypnotist and the hypnotist's non-verbal communication. Just like when you're in the presence of a parent, you take on the role of son or daughter. When you're in the presence of a teacher, you take on the role of student. When you're in the presence of a doctor, you take on the role of patient. You don't consciously decide to take on these roles, or any other role in life. You take on these roles naturally, and throughout life, most people learn to take on different roles for different situations. They don't enter the situation thinking about getting into character. It happens automatically. So it may be with hypnosis, that those who expected that they're supposed to be more suggestible during hypnosis responded quicker to suggestions within hypnosis. Those who didn't know either way didn't increase or decrease their suggestibility. And those who thought only weak-willed people could be hypnotized, or had some negative thoughts towards hypnosis, perhaps became less suggestible and took longer to respond to suggestions. The 2 main domains of hypnosis theories focused on dissociation theories and socio-cognitive theories. The dissociation theories began in the 1800s with Pierre Janet. The most popular dissociation theory is Ernest Hilgard's neo-dissociation theory. Ernest Hilgard and his wife Josephine contributed a significant amount to the field of hypnotherapy. Ernest Hilgard went back to Janet's work, focusing on the idea of conscious versus unconscious processes in dissociation. Hilgard introduced the idea of a hidden observer, the idea that there is a duality where a hypnotized subject can, when experiencing a painful stimuli, for example, and being told they feel no pain, report not experiencing any pain, whilst also reporting, through automatic writing, for example, that they are experiencing pain. They just don't happen to be consciously aware of that pain. There is no doubt that dissociation is a common experience during hypnosis. A subject can experience the automaticity of an arm levitating seemingly by itself, rather than because they're deciding to raise their arm. Other dissociation theories have been proposed, including the dissociated experience theory, which proposes that responses are voluntary. The subject decides to carry out the suggestions, but in hypnosis, volition isn't monitored correctly, and so the subject has the illusion of involuntariness, which can lead to them interpreting voluntary internally generated actions as involuntary externally influenced actions. Dissociated control theory proposes that hypnosis alters how experiences are controlled, so the subject carries out suggestions involuntarily because hypnosis leads to the control system responding to suggestions, bypassing executive functioning. In 1950, Theodore Sabin proposed the idea of a role theory of hypnosis, that hypnosis was a form of social psychological behavior, focusing on the idea that being a hypnotic subject is a role, just like that of psychotherapist, teacher, parent, or any other social role. And as with any other social role, people automatically take on the role as they perceive it. Theodore Barber built on these ideas with his operational approach to hypnosis, which looked at the idea that you could get the same effect if you encouraged active engagement in the process of what was being done, whether you defined it as hypnosis or not. He carried out numerous experiments where he would tell participants that they're taking part in a study to test their imagination, and that they were to cooperate and engage in actively imagining the suggested effects. The results were comparable with hypnosis results. Nicholas Spanos built on Sabin and Barber's work with his multifactorial model of hypnosis. He expanded their work to focus on the importance of the role of attitudes, beliefs, imaginings, attributions, and expectancies. Spanos used the idea of strategic role enactment to explain the difference between a subject that may be faking from a subject that is actively engaging with the role of hypnotized subject, and thus automatically using various cognitive and behavioral strategies to create the desired effect for the role. Another key researcher, Irving Kirsch, developed his response expectancy theory of hypnosis in the 1980s. This theory proposes expectancies for change in subjective experience can affect experience directly and generate convolutional responses. These response expectancies are expectations of automatic responses to certain situations or cues that can lead to self-fulfilling prophecies of those responses then happening. An example of this is the placebo effect, where you expect a large red pill to relieve your headache. You take that pill and your headache passes. The pill may well have just been a placebo, but you had the expectation of how you're supposed to respond to taking the pill, and that expectation leads to automatically carrying out the required cognitive, behavioral, and physiological changes for being pain-free. With Stephen J. Lin, Kirsch built on his response expectancy theory and Lin's own theories to create a response set theory. The idea being that most human activity is automatic, and so once an idea or suggestion is formed, it no longer requires much conscious control. The theory is based on work around non-conscious behaviours and automatic responses and cognitions. From moment to moment, humans are responding to response sets, patterned or scripted ways of responding to given situations. So you see your mother, you automatically become the son or daughter. You see your boss, you automatically become the employee. You take a pill, you automatically respond with the internal script for how that pill should work. Technology has moved on significantly over the years, now bringing us up to date on the history of hypnosis researchers are using that technology to better understand what is going on in the brains of hypnotized subjects. When researchers have done relaxation hypnotic inductions on subjects, they see on brain monitoring devices, heart rate monitors and galvanic skin monitors that the subject is relaxed, but not a unique pattern for hypnosis. If they are hypnotized with an active induction, the active state is revealed on monitoring devices, but still no sign of hypnosis. People used to say things like hypnosis was the alpha state, where you're triggering alpha brainwaves. There is no pattern of brainwave detectable with EEG devices that signals that someone is hypnotized. No single brainwave signals hypnosis. Over recent years, researchers like David Spiegel have carried out studies with highly hypnotizable subjects compared to those who score very low for hypnotizability, that have been examined with modern brain scanning devices like structural and functional magnetic resonance imaging scanners. What activity is going on in the brain when the person is hypnotized? What the research suggests is that hypnosis is associated with decreased activity in the brain's default mode network and is associated with greater functional connectivity between the executive control network and the salience network. This pattern of brain activity isn't seen in non-hypnotized subjects or in subjects who didn't respond to the hypnotic induction that was used. The latest thinking on why some people seem to be more hypnotizable than others is around the functional communication between an individual's salience and executive control networks, or the attentional network. The greater the connectivity, the more hypnotizable the individual. The executive network is involved in decision-making, planning, paying attention and working memory. The salience network is involved in selecting what internal and external stimuli we should be attending to at any given moment. The greater connectivity isn't about having a differently structured brain, but about having better coordination between brain areas to do with attention, emotion, action, and intention. Which means those who are most hypnotizable aren't weak-willed and easily controlled. They're those who have greatest control over their own focus and attention and have a natural tendency to become absorbed in experiences.
Next time on Hypnosis in the Media. So what exactly is hypnosis?
You have nothing to fear from hypnosis, so much to gain. Let me dispel the myths and misconceptions about hypnosis.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you want to see more, just hit the subscribe button.